The dragon who refused all riders. The fortress of Imberfall stood where the mountains split the sky. Carved from black stone and fire-hardened steel, it rose like a defiant blade against the horizon, its towers catching the crimson light of dawn and the dying embers of dusk. The winds howled endlessly through its battlements, carrying with them the scent of ash, iron, and distant war. It was a place where legends were made, and where many more were broken. For generations, Imberfall had been known for one thing above all else: the war dragon. His name was Verithrax. Even whispered, it carried weight. Stories of him traveled far beyond the mountain passes, into kingdoms and deserts, across seas and into the courts of kings. Children were warned of him, warriors dreamed of him, rulers coveted him. For a dragon like Verithrax could change the fate of entire nations. But no one spoke of what it cost. They came in waves. Warriors from every corner of the known world, drawn by the promise of glory, power, and immortality. Some arrived clad in polished armor that gleamed like mirrors beneath the sun. Others bore scars that spoke of countless battles survived. All of them believed the same thing: that they would succeed where others had failed. That they would be the ones. They gathered in Imberfall's central courtyard, a vast arena of stone worn smooth by years of blood and fire. Banners snapped in the wind, each bearing the crest of a distant land. The air buzzed with anticipation, pride, and quiet fear. Above them all loomed the dragon's enclosure. It was not a cage. No structure could truly hold something like Verithrax. Instead, it was a massive open ring of reinforced stone, etched with ancient runes that pulsed faintly in the dark. Chains lay scattered along the ground, thick, blackened links that had once been used to bind him. Most were broken. The rest were ignored. The dragon stayed because he chose to. That fact unsettled everyone. Another challenger, a guard, muttered as a man stepped forward into the ring. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his armor engraved with the sigil of a southern empire. His helmet rested beneath his arm, revealing a face carved from confidence and hardened by victory. "I have slain giants," he declared, his voice echoing across the courtyard. "I have broken armies, I will tame your beast." The crowd stirred. Some scoffed. Others watched in silence. They had heard it all before. Still, hope lingered, fragile and stubborn. The gates opened. The warrior stepped inside. And then, silence. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the shadows shifted. Verithrax emerged. He did not rush forward. He did not roar. He simply stepped into the light. And the world seemed to shrink around him. His body was vast, each movement deliberate and heavy with restrained power. His scales shimmered like molten iron, dark and gleaming, as if forged in the heart of a dying star. Along his spine, jagged ridges rose like the teeth of a blade, glowing faintly with an inner heat. His wings unfolded slowly, stretching wide enough to blot out the sky. The membranes were torn in places, uneven, the scars stark against the dark red of his flesh. His head lowered. Eyes like burning coals fixed on the man before him. Ancient, unyielding, alive. The warrior faltered. Just for a moment. But Verithrax saw it. "Fear. Stand your ground," someone shouted from the walls. The warrior tightened his grip on his spear. He charged. It was a mistake. Verithrax moved faster than anything that size should have been able to move. One moment he stood still, the next he was a blur of motion and heat. A single sweep of his tail sent the man crashing into the stone. Armor shattered. Bones followed. The warrior tried to rise. He did not succeed. Flames erupted, not wild but controlled, a focused torrent of fire that engulfed the fallen man completely. The courtyard fell silent. When the fire faded, nothing remained but blackened stone. Next, the word wasn't spoken, but everyone heard it. Another warrior stepped forward. Then another, and another. Some tried strength. Others tried speed. A few attempted cunning. None of it mattered. Some were burned. Others were thrown. A few never returned. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The bodies stopped being counted. The challengers kept coming. And Verithrax kept refusing. "He's broken," one commander said bitterly, watching from the battlements. "Useless." No, another replied quietly, not broken. Then what? The man hesitated. He remembers. There were whispers, of course. There were always whispers. Of a time before Imberfall. Before the chains. Before the endless parade of warriors and blood. A time when Varithrax had chosen. Not been forced. Not been commanded. Chosen. They said there had been a rider once, a bond forged not through strength but through trust. Together they had flown across battlefields, a force unstoppable and unmatched. Until betrayal shattered it. No one knew the details. Only that something had broken that day. And whatever remained of that bond had turned to ash. Now Varithrax trusted no one. He obeyed no one's. And he would never bow again. So Imberfall adapted. If the dragon would not be ridden, then he would remain a symbol, a warning to enemies and a monument to lost power. The fortress continued its purpose. War continued. And Varithrax remained. Watching, waiting, enduring. Among all of this, unnoticed by most, was a girl. She had no armors, no title, no legend attached to her name. In fact, few even remembered when she had arrived. One day, she had simply been there, working quietly among the healers. Her name was Leora. She moved through the fortress like a shadow, present but rarely acknowledged. Where others carried swords, she carried bundles of herbs. Where others trained for battle, she tended to those who had already fought. She cleansed wounds, stitched torn flesh, prepared salves that smelled of earth and rain. Her hands were always steady, her voice always soft. In a place defined by violence, she was something else entirely. Gentle, and because of that, most dismissed her. Another failure, she asked one evening, as a group of soldiers returned from the arena. Their armor was scorched. One man was missing an arm. Another was being carried. He burned him alive, one soldier muttered, didn't even give him a chance. Leora said nothing. She simply knelt and began her work. But she listened. She always listened. To the soldiers. To the guards. To the whispers that drifted through the halls when night fell and the fires burned low. She heard the stories. The monster. The weapon. The dragon who could not be tamed. And then one day she saw him. It happened by accident. Or perhaps it did not. She had been sent to deliver supplies to a storage chamber near the outer ring, closer to the dragon's enclosure than most healers ever went. The air there was different. Warmer, heavier, as if something vast and ancient breathed just beyond the walls. She hesitated. Then she heard it. A sound. Low, rough, not a roar. Something else. She followed it. Slowly, carefully, until she reached the edge of the enclosure. He was there. Varithrax lay curled upon the stone, his massive body coiled like a sleeping mountain. Smoke drifted lazily from his nostrils, rising into the dim light above. Up close he was different. Not smaller. Never that. But not what she had expected. The stories had painted him as something unstoppable, untouchable. Perfect in his destruction. But what she saw was something else. His wing lay unevenly against the ground, one side twisted slightly, the membrane torn and scarred. The edges of the wound were jagged, poorly healed. Old, painful, unattended. His movements, even in rest, were stiff. Careful, as if every shift carried discomfort. And the scars, they were everywhere. Across his chest, along his neck, some thin and faded, others deep and raw, as if they had never truly healed at all. Leora stood very still. The dragon opened one eye. For a moment the world held its breaths. His gaze locked onto her. Burnings, ancient, dangerous. She should have run. Every instinct told her to. Every story, every warnings, every whispered rumor of fire and death. But she did not move. Because in that moment she did not see a monster. She saw something else. Pain, not weaknesses. Not helplessness, but something buried beneath rage. Something that had been ignored. Or worse, used. They tried to break you, she whispered, though she did not realize she had spoken. The dragon's eye narrowed. She took a step back, not out of fear, but understanding. This was not a creature that needed to be challenged or commanded. This was something that had been hurt, and no one had ever cared. She left that day without another word. But she did not forget. That night Imberfall slept beneath a sky heavy with stars. Torches burned low. The winds quieted. And most believed the dragon, as always, would remain alone. But Leora walked. She carried a small lantern, its light flickering softly against the stone walls. In her other hand she held a bundle wrapped in cloth. Her steps were quiet, measured, certain. The guards noticed her immediately. Stop, one called. She didn't. Girls, you can't go in there. She'll die, another muttered. Still she kept walking. There was something in her expression that made them hesitate. Not defiance. Not arrogance. Something else. They did not stop her. The gate creaked open. The air beyond was warmer, thicker, filled with the scent of smoke and something ancient. Verithrax sensed her before she crossed the threshold. His head lifted. Slowly, eyes igniting in the darkness. Smoke curled from his nostrils. A low rumble echoed through the ground beneath her feet. Another humans. Another challenger. Another attempt. His muscles tensed. Fire gathered in his chest. But then, she stopped. Not close. Not within reach. Far enough that even his flames would take effort. She set down her lantern. Instead, the dragon hesitated. This was new. No armors. No weapons. No challenge. No fear. I won't ride you, she said softly. The words lingered in the air. Strange. Impossible. No one had ever said that before. Verithrax watched her, waiting for the trick, for the moment she would reveal her true intent, for the inevitable betrayal. But it did not come. She simply sat, quiet, still. Time passed. Minutes, then longer. The lantern flickered. The wind shifted. The fortress beyond remained silent. The dragon did not move. Neither did she. For the first time in years, Verithrax did not feel the need to strike. For the first time, a human asked nothing of him. And so he did nothing. The fire in his chest faded. The tension in his wings eased. He watched her, and she stayed. That night no flames were unleashed. No bones were broken. No screams echoed through the fortress. Only silence. And something new. Something neither of them fully understood. Trust had not yet formed. But for the first time in a very long while, it had been given the chance to begin. The girl who healed fire. Leora returned the next night. She did not announce herself. She did not ask permission. She simply came. The path to the dragon's enclosure was quiet at night, lit only by scattered torches that burned low against the stone walls. The fortress slept in uneasy silence, its people accustomed to violence, yet always waiting for the next outbreak of flame. The guards saw her again. The same girl. The same lantern. The same calm, unhurried steps. She's back, one whispered. She won't last long, another replied. Yet none of them stopped her. They had seen the impossible the night before. No screams, no fire, no death. And so they watched, caught between disbelief and curiosity, as she passed once more through the gate. Inside, the air was warm, heavy, alive. Verithrax was awake. He had not slept much since she left. Dragons did not sleep the way humans did, but even in his resting state, something had shifted. His senses remained sharp, his awareness stretched thin across every movement, every sound within his domain. He had expected her to be gone. They always were. Those who approached him either died or fled, leaving behind only fear and failure. But she had neither died nor runs. And now, she returned. His head lifted slowly as she entered, his gaze locking onto her form in the dim glow of her lantern. The same human. Small, unarmed, unafraid. Suspicion coiled within him like a tightening flame. Humans did not act without purpose. There was always a reason, always an angle, always something they wanted. He watched her carefully, waiting. Leora did not approach him immediately. Just as before, she stopped at a distance, set down her lantern, and said, "No challenge, no demands, no attempt to close the space between them." The dragon's eyes narrowed. He did not understand. Minutes passed. The silence stretched. But it was not an uncomfortable silence. It was steady. Leora simply existed there, breathing, waiting. Eventually, she spoke. "You didn't burn me." Her voice was soft, but it carried clearly through the stillness. Verithrax did not respond. But something in his posture shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible. "Thank you," she added. The dragon stilled. No one had ever thanked him before. The words settled in the air between them, unfamiliar and strangely heavy. Leora did not elaborate. She did not press further. Instead, she opened the cloth bundle she had brought with her. Inside were herbs, fresh, carefully gathered. Their scent drifted outward, cool, sharp, carrying notes of crushed leaves and distant rain. It did not belong in a place like this. Not among ash and smoke. Verithrax's nostrils flared. The smell was strange. Not unpleasant, but unfamiliar. Healing. The concept lingered in his mind, distant and almost forgotten. Leora arranged the herbs beside her, methodical in her movements. Unhurried, deliberate. She did not look at him as she worked. Or perhaps she did, but not in the way others did. Not measuring, not challenging, not judging, simply acknowledging. Verithrax shifted slightly, the movement slow and cautious. His wing scraped faintly against the stone, the damaged membrane catching against the rough surface. Pain flared. He stilled again. Leora's hands paused. She glanced toward him, her gaze settling briefly on the injured wing. "I can help," she said quietly. The dragon's body tensed. There it was. The reason. The intention. Help. He had heard that word before. Spoken by those who sought to control him. To fix him. To make him useful again. The fire in his chest stirred. But she did not move closer. Did not attempt to touch him. Instead, she placed a small bundle of herbs on the ground. And gently pushed it forward. The movement was slow. Careful. An offering. Verithrax watched the bundle slide across the stone. Watched it come to rest several paces away from him. Close enough, but not too close. "You can leave if you want," she said. The words caught him off guard. Leave. He could. The chains that once bound him were gone, broken, discarded, meaningless now. The runes etched into the stone still pulsed faintly, but they held no true power over him. He had remained because he chose to. Because leaving meant returning to a world that had betrayed him. Because here at least the pain was familiar. But she did not know that. "I won't stop you," Leora added. Verithrax exhaled slowly, smoke curling into the air. She was giving him a choice. Not a command. Not a demand. A choice. It had been a very long time since anyone had done that. He did not move. The night passed in silence. Leora did not approach him. Verithrax did not attack. And when dawn began to creep across the horizon, she gathered her things and left. He watched her go. And something in his chest, something that had been coiled tight for years, shifted. Not loosening. Not yet. But noticing. She returned again. And again. Each night the same pattern. The same quiet presence. The same gentle offering of herbs. Verithrax began to expect her. He would not have admitted it, even to himself. But he noticed the passing of time differently now, measured not by the rising and setting of the sun, but by her footsteps. The first night she moved closer, everything changed. It happened slowly, so slowly that even the guards watching from afar did not realize what they were witnessing. Leora rose from her usual place, lifted her bundle, and took a step forward. Verithrax froze. Every instinct screamed at him to react, to strike, to burn. Humans did not approach without intent. Another step. The fire ignited in his chest. Flames flickered between his teeth, light spilling from the edges of his jaws. One more step, and she would die. But she stopped, just beyond his reach. Close enough that he could feel her presence, but far enough that she did not invade his space. Leora knelt. "I know it hurts," she said softly. The dragon's growl rumbled low and dangerous, vibrating through the stone beneath them. It was a warning, a threat, a memory of what he could do. She did not retreat. Instead, she lowered her gaze, not in submission but in calm acknowledgement, and set the bundle of herbs on the ground. Slowly, carefully, she unwrapped it. The scent spread again, stronger this time. Cool, soothing. Verithrax's growl faltered. His attention shifted, not to her but to the scent. It was different. Not the sharp metallic smell of blood. Not the acrid burn of smoke. Something else. Something that did not demand. Did not threaten. Leora gently nudged the herbs closer, then withdrew her hands. "You can leave," she said again, quieter this time. The words were not for control. Not for persuasion. Simply truth. Verithrax lowered his head slightly, his gaze fixed on the small bundle. He could crush her, burn her, end this. But he did not. Instead, he remained where he was. That night she did not touch him. And that, more than anything, changed everything. Because she could have. She had come close enough. Close enough to try. Close enough to risk it. But she chose not to. And that choice mattered. The next night she reached out. The movement was slow, measured. Her hand extended toward his wing, the injured one. Verithrax tensed. His muscles coiled. His breath hitched. Memories surged. Hands gripping his scales. Chains tightening. Voices shouting. Pain. His body flinched before he could stop it. But the touch never came. Leora paused. Her hand hovered in the air just short of contact. She waited. Not for permission, but for acceptance. Verithrax watched her. And then, slowly, he did not pull away. It was not trust. Not yet. But it was allowance. And that was enough. Her fingers brushed his scales. The contact was light. Barely there. Warm. Not forceful. Not invasive. Gentle. Verithrax's entire body went still. He expected pain. But none came. Only warmth. Only care. Leora moved slowly, her touch deliberate and careful as she examined the torn membrane of his wing. "It wasn't set properly," she murmured. Her voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. Not angry. Not judgmental. Simply observant. She worked carefully, cleaning the wound with damp cloths, removing old debris that had long since hardened into the damaged flesh. Verithrax flinched once. Then again. But she did not stop. And eventually, neither did he. He allowed it. Because it did not hurt. Not the way he expected. The salve came next. Cool against the heat of his skin. Soothing. The pain dulled. For the first time in years, the constant ache in his wing lessened. Verithrax exhaled slowly, a long, steady breath that carried no fire. Leora worked in silence. She did not praise him. Did not reassure him with empty words. She simply did what needed to be done. And that was enough. Days turned into weeks, and the impossible began to happen. Varithrax stopped burning those who entered his enclosure. Because no one else entered. The commanders had ordered it. No more challengers. Not while the girl was inside. They did not trust what they were seeing. But they could not ignore it either. The dragon hasn't burned anyone in days. Have you seen his wing? It's healing. The whispers spread through Imberfall like wildfire. It's that girl. She's doing something to him. Magic. Or madness. Warriors scoffed. She's a fool. Or bait. No dragon chooses kindness. But they were wrong. Because Varithrax began to wait. He listened for her footsteps. The sound of the gate opening. The soft flicker of her lantern. And when she arrived, he watched her, not with suspicion, not with anger, but with something new. Recognition. Trust. It was not complete. Not yet. But it was growing. And it changed everything. One night as she worked along his side, Leora spoke again. They hurt you, she said. It was not a question. Varithrax lowered his head. Not in submission, but in acknowledgement. Because she understood. Without demanding. Without forcing. Without taking. She saw him. Not as a weapon. Not as a monster. But as something that had been broken. And something within him, something buried beneath years of rage, pain, and fire. Shifted. Softened. And for the first time in a very long time. Varithrax did not feel like a weapon. He felt seen. And slowly, quietly, he began to heal. The rider he chose. The war came at dawns. It did not arrive with subtlety. It did not creep quietly across the land. It came like a storm. The first signs were the horns. Low, distant, echoing across the valleys like the call of something vast and unstoppable. Then came the tremor beneath the earth, a steady, rhythmic vibration that grew stronger with every passing moment. Marching, thousands, no, tens of thousands. From the highest towers of Imberfall, the scouts saw them first. A dark tide stretching across the horizon, swallowing the light of the rising sun. Armor glinted like a sea of blades. Banners snapped in the wind, bearing sigils of kingdoms long thought divided, now united under a single purpose. Conquest. They've come. The words spread quickly. Too quickly. Through halls of stone. Across the training yards. Into the chambers of commanders and kings. The fortress stirred. Armor was donned. Weapons were sharpened. Orders were shouted. But beneath it all, beneath the urgency and the noise, there was something else. Fear. Because everyone knew the truth. Without Varithrax, Imberfall would fall. The dragon was not just a weapon. He was the difference between victory and annihilation. The last defense against an army too large to meet on equal ground. But the dragon had refused every rider. Burned every challenger. Rejected every command. And now time had run out. The commanders gathered in the war hall, their voices sharp, urgent, edged with desperation. Maps covered the central table, marked with formations, defenses, and retreat lines that none of them wanted to consider. They'll reach the outer walls by midday, one said. Archers will hold them for a time, another replied, but not long. We need the dragons. The room fell silent. They all knew. He won't obey, someone muttered. He will, another insisted, he must. And how do you propose we make him? No one answered. Because they already knew the answer. A single name hung unspoken in the air. The girl. It's her, one commander finally said, the healer. She's been inside his enclosure for weeks. And she's still alive. He hasn't burned anyone since she began. Silence. Then, if she can approach him, she can make him obey. The decision was made. Leora was brought before them. She stood in the center of the war hall, surrounded by men clad in steel and authority. She did not belong there. Not among generals and kings. Not in a place where decisions were measured in lives lost and victories won. But she stood anyway. Calm. Still. They're here, one commander said, his tone sharp. You've seen them. Leora nodded. She had. The horizon had darkened long before the horns began. Then you understand what's at stake. I do. Another stepped forward. You've gained the dragon's trust. The word felt wrong in his mouth. Trust was not something they dealt in. Not here. You will ride him, he said. Leora shook her head. The movement was small. Quiet, but it echoed louder than any shout. I won't force him. A murmur spread through the room. This is not a request, the commander replied. It is an order. Leora met his gaze. Unflinching. No, she said. The word was soft, but it did not waver. You don't have a choice, another snapped. For a moment, the weight of their authority pressed down on her. Rank, power, expectation. But then, she exhaled, and the pressure broke. Because they were wrong. She always had a choice. And she had already made it. I won't make him fight, she said quietly. You would let us die, someone demanded. Leora did not answer immediately. She thought of the dragon, of the scars across his body, of the way he flinched at sudden movement, of the silence he carried like a wound that never healed. They already tried to make him fight, she said at last. And it broke him. The room fell still. We will not ask again, the commander said, his voice cold now. You will ride the dragon. Leora said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. That night she returned to the enclosure. For the last time, the sky above Imberfall burned with the light of distant fires. The enemy had begun their advance. The outer villages had already fallen. Smoke drifted across the mountains, carried by a wind that tasted of ash and fear. The fortress would not hold for long. Verithrax was awake. He had felt it long before the horns. The shift in the air. The tension in the earth. The distant echo of war. Dragons understood war. They were born of it. Forged in it. Used by it. And he wanted no part of it. His gaze lifted as Leora entered. She moved as she always did. Calm, steady, but something was different. There was weight in her steps. A quiet finality. They want me to control you, she said. No greetings. No hesitation. Only truth. Verithrax watched her. I won't, she continued. The words settled between them. Firm. Unyielding. They're afraid, she said softly. They don't understand you. The dragon exhaled, smoke curling from his nostrils. Fear. He knew that well. He had seen it in every warrior who entered his domain. He had felt it in the hands that tried to bind him. To break him. To turn him into something he was not. Leora stepped closer. Not as a command. Not as a challenge. As she always had. She placed her hand against his scales. The contact was familiar now. Warm. Steady. You don't owe them anything, she said. Verithrax stilled. The words struck deeper than any blade. Because they were true. He owed them nothing. Not his strength. Not his fire. Not his obedience. He had given those things once. And it had cost him everything. The horns sounded again. Closer this time. The war had begun. Leora stepped back. Her hand fell away. I won't ask you to fight, she said. Her voice did not tremble. And I won't ride you. Silence. Then, she turned. Not toward him, but away. Toward the gates. Toward the fortress. Toward whatever awaited beyond its walls. She would face it as she always had. On her own terms. Without forcing him. Without using him, even if it meant deaths. She took a step, and the world changed. The ground trembled, not from distant marching, not from wars. From him, Verithrax moved. The motion was slow, deliberate, not the explosive violence they had all come to expect. Not the sudden, devastating strike of a creature built for destruction. Something else. A decision. He stepped forward, each movement heavy with purpose, until he stood beside her. Then, he lowered himself. Massive, powerful, his body sank toward the ground, one great wing unfurling and brushing against the stone beside her. An opening, an invitation. Leora froze. Her breath caught. She turned slowly, her gaze rising to meet his. "I won't command you," she whispered. Verithrax exhaled. Warm air washed over her, carrying no heat, no threat. Only presence. Not command. Choice. The same choice she had given him. Returned. Slowly, carefully, she stepped forward. Her hand found his side. Familiar. Steady. Then, she climbed. There were no chains. No harnesses. No reins. Nothing to bind him. Nothing to control him. Only trust. Verithrax rose. The movement was powerful, fluid, effortless. His wings spread wide, catching the air with a force that shook the ground beneath them. For a moment, everything stilled. Then, they leapt. The sky opened before them. Wind rushed past. Cold, sharp, alive. Imberfall fell away beneath them, its towers shrinking as they climbed higher, faster, until the world stretched out in every direction. And ahead, the armies, a vast dark expanse of steel and fire. They saw the dragon, and fear spread, because this was not the broken creature they had expected. Not the chained weapon of a weakened fortress. This was something else. Verithrax roared. The sound tore through the sky, ancient and terrible and alive. Not a cry of rage. Not a call of war. A declaration. He was not theirs. And he would never be again's. Fire followed. Not the wild, uncontrolled inferno of before. But something precise. Focused. Purposeful. Flames rained down upon the advancing army, scattering formations, breaking lines, turning order into chaos. But Leora did not command him. She did not guide him. She did not need to. Because he chose. Every turn, every strike, every burst of fire was his. And she trusted him. They moved as one. Not through control, not through dominance, but through understanding. And the battlefield changed. The army faltered. Because they were not facing a weapon. They were facing something far more dangerous. A will, a bond, a dragon who chose to fight, and a human who never asked him to. The tide turned, slowly at first, then all at once. And when the sun set over the mountains, the battlefield was silent. The enemy had broken, and Imberfall still stood. When they returned, the fortress watched in awe. Not in triumph, not in conquest, but in something quieter, something deeper, understanding. No one cheered, no one shouted, because what they had witnessed was not victory as they knew it. It was something else, something they did not yet have words for. Verithrax landed, and Leora climbed down. No chains were brought, no orders given. Because none were needed. From that day forward, no one spoke of taming the war dragon. They no longer spoke of control, or dominance, or powers. Instead, they spoke of choice, of trust, of the dragon who refused all riders. And the one he chose. The girl who never tried to break him. The girl who healed fires.